is from way back when Kawhi Leonard was playing his first game in San Antonio as a Raptor. Guy down here says he literally won them a chip in response to the fans booing, which is false, but the guy's response. What we're not gonna do is disrespect Tony Parker, Duncan, Ginobili, Danny Green, and a bench led by Patty Mills and Greg Popovich's ball movement. You know what? He's not wrong about this. Kawhi Leonard of 2014 was definitely not Kawhi Leonard of today, but man, you almost had it. Leonard, a system player, timeout, foul, flag on the play. I felt slightly bad about this one because I agreed with most of the take, but in 2019, it's a violation to still say that Kawhi Leonard is a system player. By now, you've had years and years to watch this guy play. I feel like that narrative should have died towards the end of his time with San Antonio because he was clearly no longer a system player by then. I feel like that argument belongs really closer to like 2014 or 2015, back when it did look like he was a beneficiary mostly of the system and the players that were around him. But he became the lead guy. And the reason this is a violation today is because if you watch any of Kawhi Leonard, if you watch any Raptors basketball, Kawhi Leonard is not dominating because of a system. The guy has underrated handles, his patience on offense is amazing, he'll kill you from mid-range. It's like he always knows the perfect time to shoot tailored to his game. That's not a system, that man is a hooper. By the way, what is that? What even is a system player? If you're gonna use a term, you gotta know what you're talking about. We use the term system player to talk about guys that just would not be as good if they were on a different team. When I think system player, I think someone like Draymond Green. In other words, he's an all-star with the Warriors, but he would never ever be the lead guy on another team. And if he did not constantly have some of the world's best shooters around him, yes, a lot of his value would go down. That's a system guy. Kawhi Leonard has now played for the Spurs, and he was the guy once Tim Duncan retired and the other guys took a back seat, and it was really just him and LaMarcus Aldridge. Really, they were taking the team to a different level. We seen him in that role, and now we see him in Toronto, and he's that guy. Saying Kawhi Leonard is a system player in 2019 is the same violation as saying Steph Curry can only shoot in 2019. It means that you don't watch them play. It's that simple. System player. We ought to throw the book at you for that one. Wow, how disrespectful are we? I don't count anything Bill Russell did back in the day. He played in a league with barely any talent with no competition. He wouldn't last a day in today's NBA. In fact, he'd probably be on the bench. Let's talk about a couple of things here. First of all, I'm not about to sit here and pretend that Bill played in the best era or anything, but let's go ahead and debunk one thing. He played Wilt Chamberlain plenty of times, and Wilt could definitely play today. That's one. But let's talk about how Bill Russell played the game of basketball. Just some of the qualities that he had back then that would still transfer over today. One thing Bill was a master at was blocking the basketball but still keeping it in bounds. So instead of just swatting it like a volleyball and it goes out of bounds and the team retains possession, or blocking it in any way where the team retains possession, he could block it and keep it in and start a fast break. So that's one thing. The other thing was that Bill was an amazing teammate. He didn't have the superstar ego even though he was a superstar. And that's a big reason why, even if we're talking about Wilt Chamberlain as a better player than him, like skill-wise and could do more just as a basic player, yeah, Wilt Chamberlain was better, but the reason the guy was never winning, even at a point where he had a better team and he should have won, is because Wilt was not a good teammate. Elgin Baylor talks about this in his book. He got into it with the coach. When he came to the Lakers, he wasn't happy with certain things, like he was basically a diva back in that era. But also, a majority of his career, he only cared about stats. So even though he was a more dominant player than Bill Russell, he didn't know how to use it right. He only knew how to use it to get stats. Okay, but now let's get into the meat of this whole problem. This whole thing about not counting anything Bill Russell did because he didn't play against good competition. You know what, I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I've seen the tape from the 60s. No, at that rate, those guys couldn't play today. But why do we talk about players from the 60s, 70s, or any era? Why do we talk about them as if they would just be playing today in their 60s form? Because we're talking about a time where guys weren't lifting weights, sports technology wasn't there yet, guys were holding second jobs and stuff during the summer because the NBA didn't pay that much. So if we're talking about taking a player like Bill Russell and putting him in 2019, isn't it only fair to make the assumption that he's going to be training like today's players and eating like today's players, benefiting from the same technology today's players benefit from? So if we combine that with the fact that Bill was an amazing teammate, he had those leadership qualities, and the way he played back in the 60s with what they had, if we're applying all of that today with the advantages that today's players have, how do you come up with the idea that he would just be a bench player? Yeah, if you just take him directly from the 60s and transport him into today, Yeah, the game is totally different. Everything has changed. The world has changed. But I don't see how you can make that assumption. That's the whole reason that moving on, I think 2019 is like the year where we can almost like officially stop comparing players from the past, because the game has changed so much now with the freedom of movement. The 14-second thing after you shoot, you don't get a full 24 seconds anymore, so there's more possessions. There is so much different that stats today are gonna look way different than they would have even 10 years ago. So when you see somebody having like a crazy average, like their points are just crazy now, you won't even be able to just attribute that to, oh, he was just a more talented player. No, the game is so different now. We're really at that point where it almost doesn't make sense to compare if you're just talking about numbers. Oh yeah, and by the way, the man won 11 championships. I get that that's relative because of the rounds and everything back then, but you can't just not count that. That's stupid. Speaking of stupid, this meme is completely stupid. I see this floating around every now and then, and I don't get the premise. My bad, I get the premise, but you can tell whoever made it, this is definitely somebody that was not watching basketball 10 years ago. It says Durant joined them because LeBron joined them in order to beat them just to be him. What? Hold up, timeout. Again, this is another one of those takes where actually there is some truth to it. Durant did feel comfortable joining Golden State. He said so because of what LeBron did going to Miami. And yeah, LeBron has said himself, you know, that was an effort to beat the Celtics. Okay, but the Celtics got together through trade in the summer of 2007. In the summer of 2007, the Lakers had just finished a season in which they were 42-40, and Kobe was still trying to get a decent record without Shaq. Also, they did not even get Pau Gasol until like February of that year or January. So when the Celtics first got together, Kobe Bryant was not even on the radar for somebody they would have to beat. Back then they were thinking, you know, more in terms of like the Spurs or the Suns or somebody. This is contraband. Do not ever post this. It is factually wrong. James Harden is still a high caliber role player. Oh, a high caliber role player who takes lots of shots to put up that many points. Until he is a champion, the stats don't matter. They won't beat the Warriors team in 7 games without a leader like CP3. No shit, Sherlock. Who could beat the Warriors without a co-star? Alright, there's many things wrong with this. Yeah, that last part. First of all, nobody's really beating the Warriors. And yeah, last year, and yeah, it probably would have helped to have Chris Paul for those last 2 games, considering how the other ones went. Yeah, that probably would have helped. But let's talk about him being a high caliber role player who only scores like this because he takes a lot of shots. First of all, this is another casual / new NBA fan take, because if you knew anything about Harden, you would know that he's been a walking bucket pretty much since he joined the Houston Rockets. He was good for the Thunder, but like, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't his first game with the Rockets like a 40-point game against the Pistons or something like that? Like very early on in the first time he got traded to the Rockets? That's when we knew like, uh-oh, the Thunder had something, they were hiding it, or it couldn't bloom over there. Okay, but let's talk even more. James Harden was traded to Houston in 2013. His averages immediately shot up to 25 points. So today he averages 36. Of course, his usage is way higher. He shoots the ball way more. It's out of necessity though, by the way. A lot of the team was hurt. Clint Capella is out, Chris Paul is out, his role players are in and out of the lineup. So he's shooting like this out of necessity. But okay, so today he's taking the most shots he's ever taken. It's 23 shots a game. My problem with this is Harden also basically averaged 30 points back in 2017 when he was taking 19 shots a game. Back in 2014, he was averaging 25 points. He was taking 16 shots a game. And his averages have basically went up slightly every year, and he's taking a few more shots. My point is though, Harden has been way more than a role player, and he's been a walking bucket on less shots. That is something you would definitely know if you were watching Harden before this year. He doesn't need to take 23 shots a game in a regular year, but right now he's in a situation where if it's not him, it's like Austin Rivers. And the other part about that is they're in a wild Western Conference that's so tight that you could be 5th seed one day and 9th the next. He's keeping them in a playoff run this way. And amongst other things, James Harden does all this while rebounding and passing at the same time. Back in 2017, he was averaging 29 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds. This year is 36 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. Like, he does other things. So basically what I'm saying is this take is complete garbage. Ooh, Kobe Bryant, his 81-point game turned 13 years old the other day, I believe. I knew that thread was gonna have some juicy material in it. Immediately after Bleacher Report posts this, the guy says, yeah, on 46 attempts. Alright, wise guy. First of all, there's only been 2 players to ever reach the 80-point mark in NBA history. That would be Wilt Chamberlain and Kobe Bryant. To score a minimum of 80 points, you would need at least 40 2-point field goal attempts. That's just to start. Where I'm going with that is, it's right there for you. He made 28 of his 46 attempts. That is over 50%. As a matter of fact, that comes out to 61%. So he also shot 53% from the 3 that night. Okay, so 81 points on 61%. No matter how you would try to tear that down, that is a dominant performance. Did you idiots want him to score 80 points on 20 shots? What were you expecting here? If you need a minimum of 42-point field goals, and you know the mark is 81, what did you want the field goal attempts to even come out to? Field goal percentage Twitter is trash to start out with, but especially when they're wrong, it's even worse. They can all go in the same cell for what I'm concerned. I'm not sure what this meme was referencing or what the post was referencing, but from the comment, it looks like it was something about Curry, and the guy says, bruh, put Curry on a team where the defense can focus solely on him, it's a wrap. Ah, you don't say. You mean to tell me that a superstar is gonna have a harder time scoring if you put him on a team without help? Man, I gotta give it to you, bro. I have never thought about that one. But then there's also just the slight problem of you being wrong. First of all, the defense will never be able to just focus solely on Curry because of his gravity on the court. If you have to pick Curry up, well, it's not a question of if. Let me rephrase that. You have to pick Curry up from the time that he passes the half court logo because that's his range. He can make a shot from anywhere inside half court. So it's not like you can just let him stand at the logo and not be up there. So that is already stretching your defense past basic, fundamental or recommended limits. That is why we say that Curry is the system. Cause just that factor alone, it makes the people around him better. The court has more space. So I'm not saying that Curry could go win a championship with scrubs, or that life would even be as easy for him as if he was playing on a different team where he didn't have KD and DeMarcus and all these other guys. I am saying that Curry would make any team in history better for that simple fact. That shot is a weapon like we've never seen. So there is no such thing as a defense can focus solely on him. He dictates the defense, he bends it to his will. And as long as the floor is spread and the guy is playing him so close, he's always going to be able to penetrate and create for somebody else. Why are haters so damn basic these days? Speaking of haters, oh boy. I am going to block out the name of the page that made this meme, but you could probably guess it if you had to. It says, without a super team, Michael Jordan never made it out of the first round, and LeBron James made it to the finals with nobody, twice. Okay, alright, back up to that first part real quick. Michael never made it out of the first round without a super team. So when you were making this, what was your definition of super team? The 98 Bulls made it out of the first round. This is before Scottie Pippen was even a starter. Is this the super team you're talking about here? Let's see, Charles Oakley, Horace Grant, MJ, Paxson. That's the super team? Look at that, even Jerry Krause is looking at you funny. Alright, but wait, maybe he's on to something. We're gonna give him a chance. What about the 89 Bulls? Don't look a whole lot different than the 88 Bulls. Wow, this guy must have been honored. He was part of a super team. The 1990 Bulls? Okay, we got BJ Armstrong. Bill Cartwright? Okay, I see where you're going with this. Super Team Bulls. Alright, I'm not wasting this much time on a stupid meme. I'm just gonna put it out there. This is the most brain dead meme I have seen on this show. There's one side where MJ made it out of the first round plenty of times before he had a super team. As a matter of fact, let's address that. When were the Bulls actually a super team? First of all, no Bulls team up to 94 can even be considered a super team. That's silly. None of these are super teams. What? These teams are not even as good as like the Showtime Lakers, not even like the 86 Celtics. These are not super teams at all. The only ones that you can even make this argument for, if you're saying it's a super team, you can only even argue, and I said argue, from 96 to 98. And then this is where a lot of us just diverge, because we just all have different definitions of what a super team actually is. To me, a super team is not a great team that plays great basketball and they win 60 games. That doesn't automatically make you super. It does not make you super just because you had 3 guys that made the All-Star team. Who were those 3 guys that made the All-Star team? Who were they? Were they 3 guys that could each lead their own team? Or is it like 3 All-Stars where it's questionable if some of them would have even made the All-Star team if they weren't on this successful team? That's like when people just lump it all together and say, oh, this team had X amount of Hall of Famers. Yeah, okay, what ballot? What ballot Hall of Famer are we talking about? What type of Hall of Famer are we talking about? We talking about the Hall of Famer that won a ton of rings because he was in the right place at the right time? Or the Hall of Famer that was leading it? That's the difference. You can't just use this whole, oh, they had X amount of All-Stars, X amount of Hall of Famers. You can't just lump that together and then call it a super team. And then second, let's add some context as well as debunking something. First of all, can we just all come into an unbiased agreement that last year, if the Cavaliers run into a healthy Celtics, as in they have Kyrie Irving, at least Kyrie Irving, can we come into agreement that that Cavaliers team does not go to the NBA Finals? They were taken to 7 by this Celtics team that didn't have 2 of their best guys. They were doing well that season with Kyrie. And as much as LeBron had to do to get that team to the finals, you're not convincing me they beat the Celtics if they're healthy. So that's one piece of context there. And then the second part is about 07. Look, I'm only going to discredit and rag on the 07 Cavaliers to a certain extent. I'll say to the extent that were they one of the worst finals team of all time? Of course, they're up there with like the 01 Sixers. But I'm only going to do that to an extent because I lived through 07 and I watched 07. I knew how we felt and thought about these teams. And I can confidently say that the 07 Cavs have become worse over time. As much as we'll joke about the 07 Cavs and say he made it there with mop buckets or whatever, yeah, it's a low-hanging fruit, I get it. That was still a good defensive team though. There's more to the team than just who can put up 30 every night. That's one of the things that really helped them get there. That's one of the things that helped them win that many games that season. But specifically in this meme, it's used to juxtapose. And it's false information too. On one side we're saying that he made the finals with nobody twice, leaving out some very important details. And then you're saying MJ never made it out of the first round without his super team. The super teams that he did not have the entire times he was making it out of the first round. This is contraband. And if you're found with it, it's a month in the hole. And that's all for today. If you somehow followed this channel and didn't know that I had an even bigger one, make sure to go sub to Don2K where I do more long form NBA videos. The link is in both the comment section and in the description. Hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.